Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Sarcasm and Liberty Wednesday night live stream. I'm your host, Mike Ursary, aka the Liberty Ginger, and with me, as always, the usual suspects. We have the Paleo Libertarian. We have Sarcasm and Liberty's own resident meme lord, Michael Leoncello, our anonymous friend from across the pond, the Pure Madness one, and the annoyed monarchist Otter. How's everyone doing tonight?
I still live here, so garbage.
Good. Everyone get your opinions out at once.
Okay, so we have a few things to talk about. As always, a lot has happened since last Wednesday night. One thing that did happen, Hurricane Florence hit the East Coast. I believe it started last Thursday night, and it continued on through the weekend. Paleo was not in that hurricane, but he lives near where it happened. I won't say where he lives, but he lives near where it happened.
Well, not really near. I'm
somewhat close.
I'm in South Florida, where we're prone to hurricanes here.
Were you among the 500 million without power?
I was one of the 500 billion without power.
Yeah, I didn't have power in North Carolina that day either.
Yeah, I think they were talking about birds.
Yes,
but mosquitoes.
Anyway,
yes, I also did not have power in North Carolina. I have no power in North Carolina.
Powerless.
Yeah, powerless in North Carolina.
I have no power anytime my wife is around.
Valid point. But there are a few things you want to share with us. I mean, you live in an area that can be affected by hurricanes.
Yeah, so let me go over a few things. First of all, so far the official death toll from this hurricane is at 37, which is incredibly unfortunate. One thing that I have to stress to people is that your possessions can be replaced. Your life cannot. So if you're ordered to evacuate, if it's strongly encouraged that you evacuate, just leave. Go back and get your stuff later. You can recoup whatever needs to be recouped. Some hurricane prep for anyone that lives in an area that might get hit by a storm. You will need approximately 3 gallons of water per person per day, and it's recommended that you have a 3-day supply of whatever that you're going to need before a storm. Don't wait to the last minute on this, especially any people that are in Florida that are listening to this. Most of you already know, but we also have an influx of a lot of people that are coming from up north, especially in the New England area, that have moved into places like North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, because of the low to no tax in these states. The higher tax states are hemorrhaging people. That's something that Larry Sharp talks about as he's running for governor of New York, is that state right now is losing about 100,000 people per year because of the fact that they're getting taxed to death. So for your hurricane prep, if you're going to evacuate, take just the bare necessities. If it doesn't fit in your car, you don't need it. Only take things that you absolutely need. Get out of the house. If you know that a storm is approaching and it might affect you, go to the bank and pull out some cash, because businesses may be out of power and your cards will not work. So make sure that you have cash on hand. Also, make sure that your vehicles are full of gas. Fill up your gas tanks before the storm hits, because if power goes out, the pumps may not be working. Some areas require, I know my area requires that gas stations have backup generators, but not every area does. And especially if you're evacuating, you might be evacuating to an area that is overrun by other evacuees, and you're not going to be able to get gas in those areas if you run in there with a quarter of or even a half a tank, because like I said, not every place is guaranteed to have a backup generator if power goes out, and there's always a rush at gas stations. If you live in an area where you're not going to be evacuated and there's a possibility that you will have a storm hit you, if you can afford to buy a generator, buy a generator. But from what I understand, a few people died because they were running a generator inside their house. Never, ever, ever run a generator inside your house. It has to be well ventilated. It has to be outside. Don't even run it in your garage. Make sure it is outside in a well ventilated area. I think it was 2 older people died this past week because they were running a generator indoors. This is something you should never do. Also, anyone that's on any type of medication, make sure that your medication is up to date and filled, that you have at least a week's worth of medication if the storm is heading your way. Also, when it comes to food, make sure you're stocked up on, whatever fruits and vegetables can sit on your counter for a couple of days, and canned goods. Make sure that you have enough canned goods and go through your fruits and vegetables first. Leave the canned goods for later. Another thing, too, is that because water sometimes is in a short supply, fresh water is in a short supply, it's going to sound kind of gross, but if you can go without brushing your teeth, don't worry about brushing your teeth. Let that wait to just, once a day. Don't have to brush after every meal. And kids are going to love that one because kids like to be dirty anyway.
Do more than one day anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, another thing too is that it's going to sound kind of stupid, but before a storm comes, do all of your laundry. You don't want to be caught with no clean clothes. You can have a house without power, but you want to make sure that you have all your clothes are clean. It sounds a little odd, but it's those things that you don't think about. So those are just a few of the things that you need to make sure that you get prepped for if there's a storm heading your way. But like I said, if you're told to evacuate, just get out. There is just no reason to think that you are going to beat down a hurricane or that you're miraculously going to survive when your neighbor dies. It's just one of those things that you just don't know, and you're better off being safe. My heart goes out to the people who lost their lives over this. Some people just did not follow instructions. Some people just did things that they just shouldn't have been doing, like the generator inside the house. Just take the proper precautions. And there are ways to help the victims of the storm right now. You can go to the American Red Cross. You can donate through your phone. There are various charities that you can help out with. And, just don't look at this as something where, anything political about this, anything that's got any type of a group affiliation or any kind of nonsense like that. If people are in need, just go ahead and help. Do what you can.
All right. Thank you very much for all of that. That's very good.
This has been a private service announcement. We don't do public. It's a private service announcement, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
It was a general service announcement.
Yeah. I kind of like the little Jordan Peterson edition, do your laundry, clean your room. Make sure you wash under your ears.
Can I toss out a few more prep ideas, or are we moving on?
Yeah.
In 2005, we got hit by 3 hurricanes here in a 2-year span.
If you've got the resources to get some keychain USB drives, many of them are waterproof. You can scan all your important documents to that. You might want to keep one off-site in at a family member's house, encrypted, of course. You can, or at the in a safe deposit box. They make these. I can't remember the names of them. They make these bags that you put in your bathtub to hold all the fresh water you want to. It basically fills your entire bathtub. You can get that on Amazon pretty easily. But they do get more expensive during hurricane season. Let's see. MREs are relatively inexpensive on Amazon, but I don't recommend them as your primary emergency food source. They're great to grab a box and throw it in the car as you're leaving, though. Let's see. Scan those pictures as well, in case they get lost in a flood or something. You want to keep lots of copies of those around. 2 is 1, 1 is none on pretty much anything, but don't go overboard with it because you will have to evacuate at some point. But that's more of a bug-in mentality. Let's see. I had a bunch more that occurred. Oh, the generators and power backup. If you've got kids or you've got anyone that has the attention span of a goldfish, sometimes I do too. If you've got the ability to, if you can easily lift 50 pounds, go get yourself a big deep cycle battery and the plastic box, a marine grade box that comes with it, and you can get yourself a inverter hooked right to it and a couple of 12-volt plugs and wired onto a fuse block. Make sure it's fused because you don't want to burn yourself down in the middle of a hurricane when the fire department is on the other side of the flood zone. And you can power all of your electrical devices if you charge that battery once a month. You can power all of your devices for a number of charges, probably 20 to 40, depending on the size of them. Big tablets, small phones, whatever. And you can also use for people that can't lift such heavy weights, you might use launch batteries and wire up something similar for them or in a child room or something. But tell them that it's a limited resource, of course. Let's see. They also make the portable battery packs. I'm a big fan of the brand Anker, Anker. Those will last probably 3 to 8 phone charges, depending on the size of your phone. Cell phone networks tend to stay up if the towers haven't been blown over. The generators last around 3 days with the fuel supply on board, and cell phone networks are usually going to be your best bet if you don't have a hardwired phone. Also, ham radios are real inexpensive. Technician test is real easy, and you can get out 10 or 20 miles on a car antenna hooked up to a little $40 handheld. I've done it, and a lot of 2-meter towers. 2 meters a band. So frequency. Get into that another time. If many 2-meter and 440 megahertz towers are linked in networks all the way across. And when I was working oil field in North Dakota, I could speak to people 50 miles into Montana and 50 miles the other side of Minot. For those, it's about 250 mile stretch, and I was in the middle. So you can communicate and let people know that you are okay when you don't have communications through the normal network that we all take for granted, such as the phone that we're using right now. That's all I can think of right at the moment. Anybody else?
All right.
Stock up on lots of booze. Or weed if you're a real libertarian.
One more thing I want to add is that you can go to Costco, and Costco sells a bucket that is packed for it's a 4-day worth of meals in a bucket. It's I don't know what the shelf life. I think the shelf life on it is a few years. It's like $69.99. So if you wanted to go that route, you can go that route. But I suggest getting your own meals prepped. You can do things like beef jerky and freeze-dried foods, and they'll last, and they're guaranteed to be stuff that you're actually going to eat. And you don't have to look at stuff that you need to store for years at a time. Just go ahead and grab something that's just going to last you through hurricane season, which is only a few months.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, for my area,
it's
blizzard season.
Of course, northeastern United States, it gets cold. Lots of snow.
A couple of years ago, I was barricaded in for a good 2 weeks. So, and my parents, my family, the blizzard of '78, they have some horror stories because they were, dealing with that for 3 months straight. That was a whole season.
Well, here's a fun little story for you. I was up north during the blizzard of '78, and then I moved to Florida and got hit by a hurricane in '79.
Ooh!
Wow.
Now, where were you? Where were you in the north for blizzard '78?
I was in Connecticut.
Okay.
So, but I was only 5, so it really didn't matter.
Right. That's. Speaking of
still an experience, though. I imagine.
Yeah, that was fun.
Even if you don't remember most of it.
Speaking of a long time ago, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. So a storm hit the East Coast. Well, another storm, not of the physical variety, but of the political variety. Another political storm is brewing in Washington, D.C., and it surrounds Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, who had his confirmation hearing last week. And then as it was set to go to the confirmation vote on the Senate floor, all of a sudden, we have an allegation. Now, I say it that way, all of a sudden. Now, that is not to say that the allegation doesn't have merit. We don't know. We don't know if it has merit. For one thing, it happened in 1982. For anyone who does not know, a woman named Christine Ford alleges that back in 1982, she was at a house party that Brett Kavanaugh and his friend were at. She was getting up and walking to go to the bathroom when the two grabbed her, pushed her into, I think it was closet or a bedroom, and tried to assault her, but she got away. She put this in a letter that she sent to Senator Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein went public with the letter after the confirmation hearing. And now this is where we are, where now we don't know if Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation is still going to go to a vote because you have a lot of things going on. Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Ford have both been invited to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee about the matter on Monday. At first, she was supposed to testify. Then she said that she would not testify until there is an FBI investigation. Now, the FBI has already said that they're not going to investigate this because it's not a federal crime. But not only that, when it happened at a house party in 1982, the only witnesses, well, not even witnesses, but the only people who allegedly know about the incident are the three people involved. No one else knows about it. How is the FBI supposed to investigate that, first off?
Time machine.
I have a.
They need to go back to the crime scene 30 years ago.
What for time
Literally.
machine?
There wasn't. Well, was there actually a crime?
What are they supposed to do, though? Are they supposed to find old? Are they supposed to find old carpet fibers from 36 years ago? I mean, what are they?
Right, exactly.
Well, here's another little twist to this. So, from what I understand, they've known about these allegations since July. So they've sat on this for the last couple of months.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So this is completely political, because if this was an actual, and this is the way I look at it. If this was something that was actually something that was, first of all, I don't believe the allegation. I'm going to tell you flat out, I don't believe it, because she could have come forward about this years ago. She could have come forward about this last year or the year before, but all of a sudden it pops up right before this Senate confirmation hearing, which is just, I think it's pure garbage. Not only that, but in the current,
after.
I'm sorry?
Not even before, after it was, it came up after the hearing.
Yeah, this is just absolutely ridiculous. And to be quite honest, let's say she's telling the truth and that he groped her when he was 17. I hate to say it like this, but who cares? You were a 17-year-old, and now you're looking at someone that has spent his entire career without any other allegations about anything in that entire time. And so you're looking at something a stupid 17-year-old kid did that was, it didn't result in any type of violence. It didn't result in any type of sexual misconduct. It was a stupid 17-year-old kid that tried to feel up a girl. And if he was very aggressive on this, then he would have done more than just, oh, I want to touch your butt. I mean, if you look at this realistically and look at this like a human being and not look at this on a political spectrum, it was something a stupid 17-year-old kid did that a lot of stupid 17-year-old kids do. And there's no crime here. There's nothing here that honestly should say, no, you can't be a Supreme Court justice because you did something stupid when you were 17. I'm not saying that his behavior was appropriate. I'm not saying that his behavior was acceptable. But what I'm saying is that stupid people at 17 do stupid things when they're 17. And that type of behavior, I'm not dismissing it, but at the same time, it's kind of normal for 17-year-olds to do stupid things. So if you do something stupid at 17, it shouldn't follow you for the rest of your life. And I mean, not only is it something that's stupid at 17 that shouldn't follow you for the rest of your life, but it's something that's not even an actual crime. So this has just been totally blown out of proportion. It is just something that's just completely political, and quite honestly,
keep changing. People
and the story
different things.
So let me ask you this: what were you doing 36 years ago? Do you remember? Most people are gonna say, "Well,
I wasn't even born. How the fuck can I do something?"
There you go. I mean, if you ask the average person, "Hey, what did you do 7 years ago on May the 12th?" They're gonna say, "Shut up, I have no clue."
And apparently, she was to a therapist, but she apparently talked about it. But even the therapist don't know much of the story.
Well, apparently she didn't name him when she spoke to the therapist either, and that's part of the record. Now she apparently took a lie detector test. But here's
how easy is to mislead us things. Like,
well, that's the thing. Lie detector tests are not reliable. They're not admissible in most courts, and they're easily fooled. So
she took it in her attorney's office as well. Now, imagine if Trump had taken a lie detector test. I read somewhere. Imagine if Trump had taken a lie detector test in Cohen's office. Now, how much credence would we all give that?
Yeah, I mean,
that would have been given.
There's nothing about
that would have been given no credibility at all. Yeah. Well, the letter. Now, in the letter that Feinstein is talking about, CNN somehow got a copy of the letter. When it's supposed to be classified information in the possession of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it's a thing that is ongoing. I don't understand how CNN gets a copy of the letter. The letter was redacted. It wasn't like the actual letter itself. It was a redacted version of the letter. But she alleges that Kavanaugh and his friend were both drunk. She describes it as they tried to disrobe her, and then somehow the two of them got into a scuffle. I don't know why. I guess because they were drunken teenagers. Somehow they got into a scuffle and she got away. And that is the extent of the event that happened. But with that being said, I think one question that we really need to ask, because around Stormy Daniels has released her tell-all book about her one night thing with Donald Trump, and so she's doing all this in a book. And if you remember, 2 weeks ago we talked about if certain people are using division and using Donald Trump and the political climate to try to make a profit.
Oh, I'm certain that is happening
because of Bob Woodward's book that came out. Nike using Colin Kaepernick as the face of their new ad, which really put people into a frenzy and really gave Nike a lot of attention. So now Stormy Daniels is using this book, but at the same time, if this is not an actual allegation, if this is all a hoax, someone is using sexual assault to try to stop the Kavanaugh confirmation. Now, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's happening here, because like I said before, we don't know until this is all resolved. But hypothetically, if that were the case, has using sex as a weapon become the new political tactic in Washington, D.C.?
I mean,
are we now at the point where...
I would have called it a new weapon, because it has been used for years now.
I mean, the left has...
But the way how it is used is different.
Well, the left has used race against political opponents in the past. They have used the LGBT community against political opponents in the past. They will use whatever is convenient. And I'm not trying to sound partisan here, but Anyone who's been paying attention knows that this has been happening.
Anita Hill.
That's true.
Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas.
Well,
I
see,
vaguely remember that. That was a long time ago.
Here's the problem with this is that it's a he said, she said, and there's no way to prove this either way.
Yeah.
It's just impossible at this point. And because there's no way to prove this either way, and both sides know this, then this is just purely political theater at this point. And it is meant as just a divisive tactic. And I heard one commentator say that his theory is that they're trying to prolong this until after the midterm election because they think there's going to be a blue wave during the midterm election and that there are going to be more Democrats that are going to be voted in. And if they get more Democrats voted in, then Kavanaugh won't be confirmed. So that's one of the theories that I heard.
The problem is the Democrats keep shooting themselves in the foot with everything what the fuck they keep doing.
Or maybe get rid of Kavanaugh and whoever his next pick is, they can keep declining because they'll have the majority, either or.
My thoughts on my concerns about the Kavanaugh thing are it just doesn't make a lot of sense no matter how you look at it, aside from, like you said, political, but there's so many other opportunities she had to take political advantage of this and to have it have maximum effect for her own good. First, he was assisting Ken Starr during the Monica Lewinsky investigation. Hello, McFly. What better time? Second, he was nominated to the district court, the federal district courts. Why not then? He was nominated to the D.C. Circuit of Appeals, where he is now. Why didn't this come up then?
Well, yeah, that's what I said. She had opportunity for years. I mean, it's not like this guy has been a private figure and all of a sudden he just became, notable in the public eye. She has had opportunity. There have been many occasions where it could come up. That's why I don't believe this. The timing on this is just so suspect.
And apparently,
there's no crime here.
Even if there is, the statute of limitations is way, way gone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a federal crime for sure. There's no federal crime whatsoever, and any state or local crime is the possibility of prosecution ended before HW ever got in office, for crying out loud.
Right. And here's another thing I want to bring up too about this is that I've stated I don't believe her. But the people that are attacking her character at this point, bringing up the fact that she's a professor and that her students hated her, the people that are apparently she's received some death threats, which I don't know how credible that is. But now she needs security. The people that are just going all out and just
of course there are a lot of trolls attacking her.
I think that's going a little bit too far. I think that's going to an extreme, and I think that kind of nonsense needs to just stop. I think this needs to run its course. It needs to go away, and it just needs to be done with. Attacking somebody personally, like the way that I've seen, and the way that people are trying to ruin her life now, I think that's taken it a bit too far. I think that if we can try to maintain some civility, that's the best way to go. People just don't do that anymore, and it's really sad.
Civility, you're funny, but now we talked about all the opportunities that Christine Ford has had, but the person who received the letter is Dianne Feinstein. The reason why is because Christine Ford was living in California, and Dianne Feinstein is a senator from California. But if she had this letter in her possession before the confirmation hearings even began, wouldn't she go to the rest of these Senate Judiciary Committee and say, "Hey, I have some information about the nominee that you all need to know about"? I mean, wouldn't they, I don't know, delay the confirmation hearing if they were really so concerned about this? And not only that, but if only there was a time where Brett Kavanaugh was under oath seated in front of Dianne Feinstein where she could have asked him about this personally. If only there was a time.
But she did.
Oh, wait, there was. And she did not. She did not ask him about that. And of course, the letter says, can you keep this quiet until a later time? How convenient, first of all. Second of all, even then, I understand that yes, this is something that she said to be really struggling with. I mean, it's a very serious allegation, but still, there are things I think that Dianne Feinstein could have done being on the Senate Judiciary Committee. They could have at least delayed the confirmation hearing, and they could have. You wouldn't even have to explain why in the very beginning. I mean, but
once upon a time. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Once upon a time, having an ace up your sleeve was considered dishonest. That's what
true.
you're trying to do.
Well, another thing that's come up, which I think has been positive that's come out of this is people like Juanita Broderick, who was actually raped by Bill Clinton, who has evidence that she was raped by Bill Clinton, and the other women that were attacked, which were people that were just dismissed by the left, people that were actually raped by that man. They're wanting for him to be investigated again, and the calls for that on the right have become very strong, but the left dismisses all of them, but they're okay with trying to put forth a 17-year-old boy trying to grope a 15-year-old girl, but they're not willing to investigate or ask for the FBI or the DOJ to look into Bill Clinton's past, which is actually more recent than this allegation of him actually raping someone. They're just ready to let that one just get swept under the rug. And I think that if they're calling so strongly for this to be investigated, then quite honestly, then Bill Clinton really needs to be investigated, because I completely believe the multiple women that have come forth with stories about what he has done to them, and so I think that's something that needs to happen.
Bill Clinton is still
not only that, but
Bill Clinton's still a horn dog. I mean, there was just
the women who alleged against Bill Clinton. They could tell you all the minor details about what happened, where they were, what they were doing, what time of day it was. I mean, the event itself. Christine Ford's allegation is pretty vague, and supposedly she can't remember the exact place. She can't remember the exact time. Yet, whenever you look at, you used Juanita Broderick as an example. Whenever she did her primetime interview, she gave every single detail about what happened with Bill Clinton. And
every time she tells the story, she remains 100% consistent, not wavering at all.
I don't know that much about the Bill Clinton stuff. The only one I know is about that one who sucked him off in the Oval Office.
The Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, yeah, everybody knows about that one. I had no sex relationship with that woman. Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was young when that was going around. And it's like I remember. At first, it was all about Monica Lewinsky, and the big thing there was the gossip rags, like the Star Report and the National Enquirer and all that kind of stuff, having all the gossip like that. And, you kind of notice, just from the magazines changing, it's like every week it was, another row of women accusing Bill Clinton of, whatever he was doing that weekend, I guess.
Paula something.
Paula Jones, yeah. But there was 50 of them.
There were, I don't know how many exactly there were. There were a lot.
Yeah. Don't forget about all the women that are claiming that Biden's creepy too. And
yeah.
Now, didn't I read somewhere that he just said all of these men who are being accused, all the women who were accusing any man should be believed and it would be guilty until proven innocent?
Yeah, and who was?
I swear Biden actually said that.
And who was the congressperson that came on? I think it was today or yesterday. The woman who said The men in this country need to just shut up and step up.
Stand up and step up.
stand
Yeah. The senator from
Kamala
Hawaii, Mazie
Obama said the exact
Hirono.
same thing.
Mazie Hirono, the senator from Hawaii. I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't take long at all for them to bring identity politics into this. And I mean, it's just, I mean, everything about all the problems in this country caused by men. It's always men. It always has to do with men, predominantly white men. I mean, if you're a white man, you might as well just call yourself guilty now. Yes, white, straight, cis male, you are. Even if you didn't do anything, you're guilty. I mean, that's really what they make it seem like.
You exist,
You are
so you're guilty.
Yes, you exist, therefore you are guilty.
But
Yeah,
this
but,
is the dumbest logic
now-
you have ever heard.
Now, Brett Kavanaugh is willing to go and testify before the committee about this thing. The lady, at first she was, and then she wasn't. But now going and testifying and answering all the questions, it's about really all that Brett Kavanaugh can do at this point. But how are people supposed to combat this tactic? I mean, it's not just the tactic itself, it's all the attention that is giving to it. I mean, the media has focused on this non-stop. You have reporters camped out in front of Brett Kavanaugh's house with his wife and kids inside, which is really unnecessary. It's all you see on TV. There was some pretty big news about North and South Korea yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not. But North and South Korea have talked about they want to co-host the Olympics, I think, in 2032, I believe it is. Yeah. And they also talked about taking steps towards denuclearization. This is North and South Korea talking to each other, which is big news because before last year, or even before this year, it never happened. But that got very little attention. All the focus has been on what Brett Kavanaugh allegedly did 36 years ago, which no one can prove.
Well, don't forget.
I mean, how is someone supposed to combat that?
I have it on good authority that the reporters aren't there for the story; they're there for the cupcakes. Hey, I got to get Kay off and on for the next half hour, so I'll be on and off. I got to actually work at work. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one thing that cut through the Kavanaugh was Stormy Daniels, and Nintendo was trending on Twitter because Stormy Daniels decided to talk about Trump and his mushroom.
Yes, and his mushroom. Yes, I know. I will never look at Mario Kart the same way. Thank you, Stormy.
If anyone
just
didn't see
Mario Kart. Not every other game with a Toad exists. Like Mario Party, Super Mario Bros.
Well, she compared it to Mario Kart in her book.
Because she thinks it only exists.
She said it looked like. She said it looked like the mushroom from Mario Kart. So
and then it's still funny. Toadette and Toad, they don't have genders. They just dress themselves up as a gender. So she was trying to talk.
Interesting.
So think about that.
Interesting.
If anyone missed it, her lawyer was actually on Tucker Carlson, and if you watch Tucker Carlson like me for the laughs, I mean it is hilarious. So
Tucker's funny.
If you get 10 minutes, obviously after you watch this live stream, check that out. Tucker and the creepy porn lawyer, because I don't know his name.
Oh, Avenatti.
Yeah,
That guy who tries to stay relevant any way he can. Yeah. Anyway, Paleo, you were about to say something. What were you going to say?
Well, here's the thing. If this had been any other, quite honestly, any other politician, if it had been any celebrity, then this, honestly, it wouldn't even be a story. And you have a porn star talking about the genitals of somebody that she was paid to have sex with. This is not a real story. This is just more garbage, and this is being dragged out longer than necessary. And I really do believe that the Trump derangement syndrome is real. I think there are people that just are obsessed with him on both sides. I think there's the cult of Trump that will worship him and follow him no matter what he does and no matter what he says. And then you have the extreme on the other side that absolutely hate him to the point where they will listen to anything and believe anything that's anti-Trump. And reality is just gone in these people's minds. Nothing truthfully actually matters anymore because all they see is the extremes. And this woman is on one extreme side, and she decides, oh, I want to talk about Trump's pee-pee. And so it makes headline news, which is insane. And CNN, dedicated a segment to Trump's penis, which is insane. This is stuff that you wouldn't figure would happen. But this is the world that we live in now, where we have.
And that comes out of the fun part, because we know she's using this for gain. You will know she's lying about certain things. So,
but let's say she's lying.
How it looks. That makes it even creepier.
Here's the thing: if she's lying to tell the truth, who cares what the president's penis looks like? Who cares? Why is anybody even talking about this? This is something that should not be news.
Yeah.
This is something that legitimate news sources should look at and say, you know what? Fine, it. You want to put in your book? That's fine. We're not going to talk about that. We don't care, because that's like telling me, okay, so his toe looks like a thumb. Ooh, big deal. Nobody cares what somebody's body part looks like. It just needs to stop. At some point, this country, honestly, it's like the maturity level in this entire country has dropped down to where we don't have anyone that has a maturity above the age of 12. We're just walking around like, oh, what am I going to do today? Oh, I'm going to talk about somebody's pee-pee. Hee. This is fun. I mean, come on, grow up, America. We need to stop with this nonsense. And like Mike said, we have North and South Korea that are looking at, denuclearization over there, which is a huge story. That's something that should be talked about. We've got 37 people that just died due to a hurricane, and that's being glossed over. We've got flooding that's going on there right now. We have people that have lost their homes, people that are without power. We have legitimate problems that need to be taken care of. We have a debt in this country of over $21 trillion, and we have people that are more obsessed with, oh, what did Kavanaugh do when he was 17 years old and he was playing 7 Seconds in Paradise in a closet? I mean, this stuff has just got to stop. There are much bigger issues that are at stake, and people are just getting triggered by the stupidest things. For instance, the new Captain Marvel trailer came out for the next Marvel movie, and Captain Marvel is a female superhero. I mean, it's a great thing that this thing is being done. The movie doesn't look great to me, but I saw on Twitter somebody actually sat there, watched the trailer, and counted how many words were spoken by Captain Marvel and how many words were spoken by Samuel L. Jackson to say, oh, look, the male character, who's not even the star of the movie, had twice as many words in the trailer. Wait, really?
I saw that too.
This is your concern? Your concern is, that it isn't, Marvel just made a movie with its first female lead character, and this is a great thing. No, you're going to look at this and say, well, the male character had more words in the trailer. This is insanity. The level of stupidity that is plaguing this country right now is out of control. I think that we need more adults to step up and actually act like adults. I think that people need to stop acting like 12-year-olds, and I think that as a whole, this country needs to grow up. And there's a huge maturity problem right now. There's a huge problem with responsibility right now, and I think that is why those two things combined, the maturity level and the lack of responsibility, is why there are so many people that are leaning towards socialism right now, because they want somebody to play mommy and daddy and take care of them. And that needs to stop. When people act like adults and people are responsible for themselves, they don't want mommy and daddy to take care of them anymore. And that is a huge problem. And so I think we're seeing more divisiveness right now because the liberty movement is growing. There's more people that are leaning more libertarian that are the adults in the room. And the children in the room are the ones that are talking about pee-pees. And the children in the room are the ones that are sitting there watching movie trailers and counting words to see how many words are spoken by what character. And the children in the room are the ones that are saying, oh, we need to go straight for socialism and let's implement all these new programs. And that Osorio Rosario, whatever the hell her name is, the socialist chick from New York, wants to spend billions and trillions of dollars and doesn't know how to pay for anything, which just shows a lack of maturity. Adults think things through. And the problem is right now is that nobody is thinking things through. It's just throw anything up against the wall and see what sticks. This is what children do. It's time for this country to grow up. And I think that right now, the adults in the room needs to step up and act like adults and bring the civility back, which is something that, we are sorely lacking, and we need more people to act like adults. And all of this stuff goes away, and this childish nonsense goes away. And I'm sorry, CNN is playing towards children right now. They're looking for the 12-year-old inside of people going, oh, look at the pee-pee. That stuff needs to stop.
You need a microphone to drop.
Yeah, you do. That was a mic drop.
That was a good rant. I do gotta say, there's another reason why I'm glad Hillary didn't win, because I definitely do not want to know what her penis looks like.
Yeah.
Good
Sorry,
point.
I had to be immature there, Paleo.
Adding on to what Paleo said, don't forget that the children in the room are also dressing up like handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale and protesting at Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I still am bothered by that. I don't really understand. I mean, as far as Brett Kavanaugh himself, I mean, he's going to be sitting on the Supreme Court for a long, long time if he's confirmed. I mean, for a long time, probably as many as 30, 40 years, maybe. I'm not sure how old he is. But he will be there for a long time. How does Brett Kavanaugh feel about the Bill of Rights? How does he feel about the laws we already have in place? How does he feel about NSA spying? How does he feel about FISA warrants? How does he feel about, I mean, this is the things that we should be asking about Brett Kavanaugh, not what he did when he was 17 years old.
Well,
I mean,
here's one of my
very few discussions about Brett Kavanaugh, about how he views the laws we have in this country and the way our government does things. I mean, this is what we're not talking about, but we should be.
Well, here's one of my concerns when it comes to that, is that apparently he was one of the authors of the Patriot Act. And if he's one of the authors of the Patriot Act and he's pro-Patriot Act, that makes him kind of scary.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah, these are the things that we don't know about.
And like you were saying, like, we should be asking those questions. Like, I'm watching the news and people are like, oh, well, they're worried that he might have a conservative bias on things like guns. And I'm like, a conservative bias on things like guns? So you mean the constitutional bias? Like, because that's what he does. He's supposed to judge the Constitution, not be biased to one side.
Don't want people to have protection and safety.
Doesn't every judge sitting on the Supreme Court have some kind of bias anyway? I mean, there are judges with conservative bias and there are judges with liberal bias.
As a human, you're going to have bias. I mean, we can't just put robots on. Not yet.
Well,
not yet.
Even these robots they're still made by humans.
I can tell you,
still incredibly flawed.
I can tell you that. I mean, one thing that I have read about is that he is a textualist. He goes off. I mean, he makes his decisions based on what the law says, which, I mean, that's what you want your Supreme Court justices to do anyway. Am I right? I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah.
They want to hand down rulings based on what the law says. And I mean, if he does that, fine. I don't care what his own personal biases are, as long as he's not bringing his own personal bias and using that to dictate how he makes his decisions.
Right. And like I said, it's all part of being human. It's just like, I mean, there are, I think, 9 words in that Second Amendment, and the way the right and the left both view those 8 words completely differently is beyond me.
Yeah, 9 words. 9 words in the Second Amendment. You are correct. Our final question of the night. This is the one that we keep on asking, and even though this question sounds redundant, it's still a pretty important question, because think about how things are going to be later on down the road. How does this affect our political climate? Like, if this were to if this thing were to ultimately keep Brett Kavanaugh from being confirmed, if this is the reason why Brett Kavanaugh is not confirmed and goes on the Supreme Court, what happens next with the next Supreme Court nominee? What happens
as long as for Trump, the Democrats will never accept it.
Right.
I mean,
eventually they'll run out of victims, right?
You would think. I don't know, but I mean, it's just.
Yeah, they just grab the same person again. Oh, that person did it too.
Yeah, they dye her hair blonde or whatever.
Did it too.
Like, how many house parties did you go to when you were 15 years old? This is.
That person did something when they were 2 years old.
Right. It's.
I can honestly see the Democrats even using the person was born, so he raped his mother.
While we're at it, are we trying to find out who supplied the booze to that party? Because that's a crime that needs to be answered for too.
Exactly. Who was giving alcohol to minors that night? That's a very valid question. Very valid question to ask. All the things in our political climate right now, I mean, the Me Too movement. I'm not trying to discredit the Me Too movement. I mean, the Me Too movement is valid with all the things that do happen in this country. I mean, there are terrible things that happen, but if the Me Too movement could be weaponized, and if all of these other things could be weaponized to use against political opponents, I mean, like at some point that just turned, does it not?
Well, it already bit one of the starters of the Me Too movement already back in the ass. The one who apparently had sex with a 70-year-old kid. I forgot her name.
Oh, the actress, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, as far as how things are done in Washington, D.C., I mean, it reaches a point of no return where our system is completely broken because of stuff like this. I mean, yes or no? Is it?
You're saying Washington's completely broken because of what now? I'm sorry, I was.
Well, I mean, just our current political climate where we're trying to weaponize certain things, race, sex, other things, and use that against political opponents to keep them either from getting elected or getting from confirmed or whatever. I mean, does it reach a point of no return where the system is completely broken, or does this current tactic just?
Oh, definitely, and it's not even just in politics. It's everywhere now. Like, you look at how many different actors went down this whole route. Like, there are shows or movies that have to stall and do a bunch of things over because the guy that they were using got caught with a rape charge last week and can't do the rest of the movie.
Who was this?
Just a bunch of different examples. Okay.
Well, look at Chris Hardwick.
Who?
Chris Hardwick is a good example of that. He's the guy that hosts the after show after The Walking Dead called Talking Dead. He also hosts The Nerdist and a couple other shows. He had an ex-girlfriend who accused him of abuse, and turned out that they were not real allegations. So they pulled his show. They pulled him off every show that he was on, and he was basically on hiatus waiting for this to play out. And then it came out that apparently he was innocent. So he got his jobs back. And it was just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
So
it basically seems like there's this anti-conservative movement kind of going on in the background. Not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's like I said, you're seeing people movie stars getting caught up with rape charges, and then you have other movie stars saying, "Oh, yay, socialism," and nothing comes up about them. Like the ones that kind of jump over to the Democratic Party. You never hear about anything coming up with Jim Carrey now that he's all about socialism.
You already got corrected by someone from Venezuela, a reporter. He's like, do you know what you're talking about, sir?
And it's I'm sure anyone in Hollywood has some kind of skeleton in their closet that someone can bring up and ruin their career. You know what I
Well, look
mean?
at Harvey Weinstein. I mean,
And
Harvey Weinstein is
same,
one of the most powerful people there, and he went down. I mean,
Well,
Oh,
still waiting
definitely.
for till Hillary get down, because even of them.
well, Hillary
Dustin
is
Ho-
never going to go
Du-
down.
Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, that's why Bill got Monica.
Who knows?
Zing. Anyway,
Uh,
that's going to be something really interesting to watch going forward. And I mean, if this does happen again, I'm just going to stop paying attention to everything else completely altogether, because it's just going to be predictable at that point. But Brett
Every
Kavanaugh,
time
I
I pay
guess, is
attention
supposed
to the news, becoming a hermit in the woods seems like a much better idea every time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It certainly does. I mean, I don't even watch cable news anymore, really, because it's all just noise.
garbage.
Right.
But
Same.
but there are many things being weaponized to use against political opponents. It's sad that it's come to that. Thank you for watching tonight. This is a really good stream, a really good discussion. Monday should be an interesting day. If both parties do happen to testify, that'll be. I don't know if it'll be an open hearing. It might be closed. I don't know, but still, that'll be interesting to watch going forward. The three things we will make sure they do not weaponize, however: life, liberty, and sarcasm, as always. Good night, everyone.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Right.